The garage door groaned as Sullivan pushed it up, releasing a wave of stale air into the crisp autumn morning. Dust motes danced in the beams of sunlight that penetrated the cluttered space. He stood in the doorway, hands on his hips, surveying the accumulated debris of 15 years of marriage. Cardboard boxes teetered in precarious towers, sporting faded labels in Aurora's elegant handwriting Christmas, tax records 2018, and Brooks' elementary art. Time to deal with this mess, he muttered, pulling on work gloves. The memory of Aurora's parting kiss this morning still lingered quick, distracted, her mind already on her latest business trip. 3 days in Chicago for a marketing conference, she'd said, just like last month's symposium in Denver. And the regional meeting in Seattle before that. Sullivan grabbed the nearest box, labeled winter clothes, and sneezed as dust billowed up. The cardboard felt damp and weak, probably from the garage's poor insulation during last winter's storms. As he lifted it, the bottom gave way with a soft rip, spilling moth-eaten sweaters and old scarves across the concrete floor. Damn it, he knelt to gather the scattered clothing, his knee cracking in protest. At 45, these reminders of age were becoming more frequent. He'd been 30 when he married Aurora, taking on not just a wife but her 5-year-old daughter. Now Brooke was 20, a sophomore in college, and he sometimes caught himself wondering where the years had gone. The sound of footsteps on gravel made him look up. Brooke stood in the driveway, backpack slung over one shoulder, keys jingling in her hand. She wore ripped jeans and an oversized university sweatshirt. Her dark hair, so like her mother's, pulled back in a messy bun. Garage cleanup? She raised an eyebrow. Mom's been bugging you about that forever. Sullivan straightened up, his back protesting. Figured I'd surprise her. Make some progress while she's at her conference. Right, the Chicago thing. Brooke's eyes skated away from his for a moment. Need any help before I head to class? Nah, go on. This is my project. He waved her off, then paused. Unless you want to claim any of your old stuff before it hits the dumpster? Brooke laughed, but something about it seemed forced. God, no. Throw it all out. Just maybe check with Mom before you trash anything of hers. Of course. Sullivan watched her climb into her car, the one he'd helped her pick out last year, teaching her about engine sizes and fuel efficiency. She waved as she backed out, and he felt that familiar surge of paternal pride. Despite not being her biological father, he'd always considered Brooke his daughter in every way that mattered. Turning back to the mess, Sullivan began sorting items into piles. Keep, donate, trash. The work was mindless enough to let his thoughts wander. Aurora had been traveling more frequently lately. The marketing firm she worked for was expanding, she explained, requiring more client meetings, more conferences, more late nights at the office. He trusted her completely. 15 years of marriage had built that trust. Brick by brick, behind where the winter clothes box had sat, something caught his eye. A dark brown leather suitcase, pushed far back against the wall. Sullivan frowned, not recognizing it. Their regular luggage was stored in the hall closet, matching sets in navy blue that Aurora had insisted on buying 3 years ago. But he pulled the suitcase out, studying it. The leather was expensive but worn, the brass fixtures tarnished with age. No identification tag, no airline stickers, nothing to indicate its origin. It felt heavy when he lifted it. Hey, Dad. Brooke's voice made him start. She stood in the garage doorway again, keys still in hand. I forgot my laptop charger. Sullivan held up the suitcase. Ever seen this before? The change in Brooke's expression was subtle, just a slight widening of the eyes, a tightening around the mouth, but he caught it. After 15 years of raising her, he knew her tells. No idea. Her voice was carefully casual. Probably just some old luggage of Mom's. You know how she keeps everything. True. Sullivan set the suitcase on his workbench. Thought you needed your charger? Right? Yes. Brooke hurried past him into the house. When she returned a few minutes later, she barely glanced his way. Got it. See you tonight. Sullivan waited until her car had disappeared down the street before turning back to the suitcase. The latches were stiff with disuse but opened with a soft click. Inside, the first thing he noticed was the smell, a faint trace of Aurora's perfume, mixed with something else. Something masculine, his hands trembled slightly as he lifted out a stack of envelopes. They were arranged chronologically, the oldest postmarked 5 years ago. Hotel receipts slipped from between them, establishments he'd never visited with Aurora. The Grand Plaza Hotel, the Riverside Inn, the Oakwood Executive Suites. Sullivan's throat felt dry as he opened the first envelope. The paper inside was cream-colored, expensive stationery. Aurora's distinctive handwriting flowed across the page. "My darling, another weekend without you feels like an eternity. These stolen moments we share are never enough, but they sustain me through the long days apart. Last night, I dreamed of our time at the lake house. Your touch, your smile, the way you make me feel so alive." The letter went on, becoming more intimate. Sullivan's vision blurred. He opened another envelope, then another. Years of correspondence, each letter more damning than the last. Some were recent, dated within the past few months. Beneath the letters lay photographs. Aurora at a restaurant he didn't recognize. Candlelight softening her features as she smiled at someone across the table. Aurora on a beach, wearing a sundress he'd never seen. Aurora in a hotel room, the rumpled bed visible behind her. In each image, she looked radiantly happy, a happiness he realized he hadn't seen at home in years. His phone buzzed, making him jump. A text from Aurora. "Conference running late. Don't wait up tonight. Love you." Sullivan stared at the message, ball rising in his throat. How many times had he received similar texts? How many conferences had really been rendezvous with her lover? How many late meetings were actually intimate dinners? He began methodically sorting through the suitcase's contents, laying everything out in precise rows on his workbench. His accounting background surfaced as he organized the evidence, receipts in one pile, photographs in another, letters arranged by date. A pattern emerged. The affair had been going on for at least 5 years, possibly longer. The meetings were carefully planned, disguised as business trips or industry events. His phone buzzed again. "Brooke, this time. Mom wants to know if you got her message about being late." Sullivan's hands clenched. Of course. Brooke was part of this. The realization hit him like a physical blow. His stepdaughter, the girl he'd taught to drive, whose scraped knees he'd bandaged, whose broken hearts he'd helped mend, had been helping cover her mother's infidelity. "Everything okay?" Brooke's voice made him whirl around. She stood in the doorway again, watching him with guarded eyes. "You didn't answer Mom's text. She's worried." Sullivan forced his features into neutrality. "Everything's fine. Just got caught up in the cleaning." He gestured at the surrounding boxes, carefully positioning himself to block her view of the workbench. "Tell her I got the message." Brooke didn't move. "Are you sure you're okay? You seem different." "I'm fine." The words tasted like ashes. "Don't you have classes?" "Between them right now." She shifted her weight, uncomfortable. "Dad, if something's wrong." "Nothing's wrong." He turned back to the boxes, dismissing her. "Go to class, Brooke. Everything's fine." After she left, Sullivan sat heavily on his tool chest, surrounded by evidence of his wife's betrayal. The garage walls seemed to close in around him. Memories cascaded through his mind, taking on new, darker meanings. Aurora's increased travel schedule, her vague answers about client meetings, the way she guarded her phone, Brooke's casual mentions of her mother's whereabouts, always ready with details about supposed conferences or meetings. Moving to his home office, Sullivan booted up his laptop. The password to their shared cell phone account was still Brooke's birthday, a fact that now seemed bitterly ironic. Years of call logs and text messages spread before him like a roadmap of deceit. He began copying suspicious numbers into a spreadsheet, his accounting skills repurposed for documenting betrayal. The next few days passed in a haze of investigation and mounting rage. Sullivan maintained a facade of normalcy, eating meals with Brooke, watching TV, responding to Aurora's texts with his usual brief replies. But every moment alone was spent digging deeper, that he found credit card statements showing hotel charges in cities where Aurora claimed to be elsewhere. Email receipts for jewelry he'd never seen her wear. Restaurant bills for intimate dinners on nights she was supposedly working late. One evening, as he reviewed bank statements in his office, a knock at the door interrupted his concentration. "Dad? Can I come in?" Brooke's voice was hesitant. Sullivan minimized the spreadsheet. "Of course." She entered, perching on the edge of his desk like she used to do as a child. "You've been different since Mom left for this trip. Are you sure everything's okay?" He studied her face, seeing Aurora's features but someone else's expressions. How had he never noticed before? "I'm fine. Just busy with work. Mom's worried about you. She says you've been distant in your texts." A bitter laugh threatened to escape. Did she? When did she say that? This afternoon, when she called. Brooke fiddled with her phone, the same nervous habit she'd had since adolescence. "She's thinking of coming home early if you need her to." "No," Sullivan said sharply. Then, moderating his tone, "Tell her to finish her conference. Everything's fine here." Brooke's fingers flew across her phone screen, relaying his message. Sullivan watched her, wondering how many similar messages she'd sent over the years. How many times had she helped maintain her mother's elaborate deception? That night, unable to sleep, Sullivan remembered Aurora's old phone. She'd upgraded months ago, claiming the old one had stopped working. He found it in a drawer of their bedroom, buried under old receipts and warranty cards. The phone powered up without issue. Messages filled the screen, hundreds of them, spanning years. His hands shook as he scrolled through conversations between mother and daughter. "Aurora, running late tonight. Tell Sullivan I'm at the quarterly review." Brooke already did. He didn't suspect anything. "Aurora, need to extend the trip another day." Brooke, "I'll say the flights got delayed." "Don't worry, Brooke. Dad's asking questions about last weekend." "Aurora, you know what to say." "Conference in Phoenix," like we discussed. Message after message documented their conspiracy. Sullivan's vision blurred with rage. The betrayal wasn't just Aurora's. It was Brooke's too. His stepdaughter, whom he'd raised as his own for 15 years, had helped orchestrate this deception. That he returned to the garage, retrieving the suitcase of evidence. Working through the night in his office, he cataloged every item, scanning documents, photographing photos, creating a digital record of Aurora's infidelity. His accounting background served him well as he built a timeline of betrayal, cross-referencing dates and locations. Dawn found him still at his desk, surrounded by proof of his shattered marriage. His phone buzzed with Aurora's morning check-in. "Missing you, honey. Can't wait to be home tomorrow. Love you always." Sullivan stared at the message, his heart hardening. After a long moment, he typed a single word, "same." That he looked out the window at the rising sun, watching as early morning joggers passed by their comfortable suburban home. How many of them knew? How many neighbors had seen Aurora with her lover while he worked late at the office, trusting her completely? The sound of Brooke moving around upstairs made his jaw clench. She was as much a part of this as her mother. His stepdaughter, the girl whose college tuition he paid, whose dreams he'd supported, whose life he'd helped shape, had betrayed him with every smile, every casual lie, every time she'd helped maintain her mother's elaborate deceptions. Sullivan opened his laptop and began researching divorce lawyers. There would be no forgiveness, no reconciliation. Aurora and Brooke had made their choice years ago, conspiring together to fool the man who had given them everything. Now he would make his choice. As he typed evidence of infidelity into the search bar, Sullivan felt something inside him change. The warm, trusting man who had loved his family unconditionally was gone. In his place sat someone colder, harder, someone who would make Aurora and Brooke pay for every moment of their betrayal. Opening a new spreadsheet, Sullivan began listing his assets. The house purchased with his inheritance money before the marriage. His retirement accounts, the investment portfolio he'd carefully built over 2 decades. Everything would need to be protected. Another text from Brooke lit up his phone. "Made coffee. Want some?" Sullivan ignored it, continuing his research. Let them think everything was normal for now. Let them believe their lives were still working. Soon enough, they would understand the true cost of betrayal. The sun climbed higher in the sky as Sullivan worked, its warmth unable to touch the cold certainty growing in his heart. There would be no second chances, no opportunity for explanation or apology. Aurora and Brooke had destroyed something precious: his trust, his love, his belief in family. Now he would destroy everything they had built on lies. The DNA testing kit sat unopened on Sullivan's desk, its clinical white packaging stark against the dark mahogany. 3 days had passed since he'd ordered it, paying extra for rush delivery. The morning sun filtered through his office blinds, casting prison bar shadows across the package that would destroy his last illusions about his family. His phone buzzed another text from Aurora. Meeting went great. Miss you both so much that Sullivan's jaw clenched as he deleted the message without responding. His laptop screen showed the results of his morning's research. Fletcher Davis, marketing consultant. The man's LinkedIn profile painted a picture of success. Harvard MBA, founder of Davis Consulting Group, regular speaker at industry conferences. The same conferences Aurora had been attending for years that a knock interrupted his thoughts. "Dad, can I bring you some coffee?" "Come in," Sullivan called, quickly minimizing the browser window. Brooke entered carrying 2 mugs. She wore her usual college outfit, ripped jeans and an oversized sweater, her dark hair pulled back. Every movement, every gesture reminded him of Aurora, making his stomach churn. "You missed breakfast again," she said, setting down his coffee. "Are you sure everything's okay at work?" Sullivan picked up the DNA kit, watching her reaction. "Interesting package came today." Brooke's hand froze on her mug. "What is it?" "Just a simple test." He turned the box, showing her the label. Amazing what science can tell us these days. About family. About truth. Color drained from Brooke's face. "Dad, what are you doing?" "Finding answers." He opened the box, removing a sterile swab. "Open your mouth." "What?" "No." She backed away. "This is crazy." Sullivan stood slowly. "Is it crazy to want the truth? To want to know if the child I raised is actually mine? Of course I'm yours. You raised me. Raising someone doesn't make them your blood." His voice hardened. "Open your mouth, Brooke. Or should I ask your mother about Fletcher?" She stumbled backward, catching herself against the doorframe. "How do you? Who's Fletcher?" "Don't." Sullivan's voice cracked like a whip. "Don't you dare lie to me. Not anymore. Your mother's boyfriend? Partner? What do you call your real father?" Tears welled in Brooke's eyes. "Please, you don't understand. Then help me understand." He advanced, swab in hand. "Help me understand why my daughter, the girl I've loved and raised for 15 years, has been lying to me, helping her mother deceive me. She made me promise." Brooke's voice broke. "She said if you found out, you'd leave us, that we'd lose everything." Sullivan laughed bitterly. "So it was about money? All those years I thought we were a family. We are a family. Families don't lie to each other." The words exploded from him. "They don't conspire and deceive and betray. Now open your mouth. Let's settle this once and for all." Brooke's hands trembled as she took the swab. "This won't change anything. You're still my dad. We'll see." Sullivan watched as she ran the swab inside her cheek, tears streaming down her face. "Put it in the specimen bag." She complied, hands shaking. "What happens now?" "Now." He sealed the package. "Now we wait. A few days for results. Until then you go to class, act normal. Don't warn your mother." "Or what?" Sullivan met her eyes coldly. "Or I'll make sure you both end up with nothing. Every penny of your college fund, every asset I brought to this marriage is gone. Try explaining that to your mother." Brooke fled the room. Her bedroom door slammed upstairs, followed by muffled sobs. Sullivan felt nothing. The capacity for sympathy had been burned out of him, replaced by a cold determination to uncover every lie. He returned to his laptop, diving deeper into Fletcher Davis's digital footprint. The man's social media presence was carefully curated professional headshots, industry event photos, motivational quotes about success. But there, in the background of a conference photo from 3 years ago, Aurora, wearing a red dress Sullivan had never seen, smiling at someone out of frame. More photos emerged as he dug deeper. Fletcher and Aurora at industry panels, always seated near each other. Group shots at marketing summits where they stood just a little too close. A decade of their relationship documented in pixels and metadata. Hidden in plain sight, Sullivan created a spreadsheet, cross-referencing dates, March 15th, 2019. Aurora Marketing Conference in Boston. Fletcher Davis keynote speaker. Boston Marketing Summit Hotel charge. Grand Plaza, Boston, June 22, 2019. Aurora client meeting. In San Francisco, Davis Consulting Group opens West Coast office restaurant charge. Le Petit Bistro, San Francisco. Entry after entry, year after year, their paths cross too. perfectly to be coincidence. He found older photos, some dating back to before his marriage to Aurora. The implications made him sick. Had their entire relationship been a lie? Had she been with Fletcher the whole time? His phone rang Aurora again. He let it go to voicemail, then played the message, "Hi, honey. Just finished the morning sessions." The keynote speaker was amazing. I think his strategies could really help our marketing department. Can't wait to tell you all about it. Love you. Sullivan checked Fletcher's speaking schedule. Sure enough, he was giving the keynote at the same conference. His hands clenched into fists as he imagined them together, laughing at his ignorance at a soft knock at his door. "Dad?" Brooke's voice was hesitant. "Can we talk? About what? More lies?" She entered anyway, eyes red from crying. "I want to explain." "Explain what?" "How long you've known about Fletcher. How many times you've covered for them." Brooke sank into a chair. "I was 12 when I found out. Mom, she was on the phone with him. I heard things I shouldn't have. When she realized I knew, she made me promise not to tell. And you agreed? Just like that? She said he was my real father. That if you found out, you'd hate me. That we'd end up homeless." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "I was just a kid. I was scared." Sullivan's voice was ice. "And now? What's your excuse now? You're 20 years old, Brooke. Old enough to know right from wrong. I wanted to tell you so many times, but Mom said it would destroy everything. That you'd never forgive us. She got that right at least." He turned back to his laptop. "Go pack your things. When she gets home tomorrow, you're both leaving." "Dad, please. We can fix this." "Fix this?" His laugh was harsh. "There's no fixing betrayal. You and your mother made your choices. Now you'll live with the consequences." Sullivan spent the rest of the morning on the phone with his lawyer, Richard Ellis. The older man's response to the evidence was everything he'd hoped for. "Come to my office at 2, Ellis said. "Bring everything you found. We'll need to move fast on this." The drive downtown gave Sullivan time to think. Memories flooded his mind. Teaching Brooke to ride a bike, attending her school plays, helping with college applications. All those moments now felt tainted, poisoned by the knowledge that another man should have been there. That he'd been nothing but a convenient replacement, that Ellis's office was all leather and mahogany, old money and discretion. The lawyer whistled as he reviewed the evidence. "Christ, Sullivan. She's been playing you for years." Ellis spread the photos across his desk. "And the daughter helped cover it up? Every step of the way. The DNA test should have results in a few days." Sullivan's voice was flat. "But look at the dates on those photos. Fletcher was in the picture before Brooke was born." Ellis leaned back, steepling his fingers. "With this much evidence of infidelity, the prenup is void. We can go after everything. Do it. I want them to have nothing. It'll get ugly. Aurora will fight back when she realizes what's coming." Sullivan's smile was cold. "Good. I want her to fight. I want her to feel everything slipping away, just like I did." "And the daughter?" "Brooke's not a minor anymore, but the courts might. She's not my daughter." Sullivan cut him off. "Never was. Let her go live with her real father." Back home, Brooke's car was gone. A note lay on his desk, * gone to stay with Madigan. "I know sorry isn't enough, but I never meant to hurt you. Everything I did was to protect our family. I love you, Dad. Please don't throw that away. Brooke, *. He crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. His phone showed missed calls from Aurora, 12 of them. Text messages followed, Brooks not answering her phone. "What's going on? Should I come home early?" "Sullivan, please answer me. I'm worried." He typed back, "Everything's fine. See you tomorrow." The DNA results arrived by email that evening. Rush processing had its benefits. Sullivan sat in his darkened office, cursor hovering over the attachment. Outside, a storm was brewing, thunder rolling in the distance like artillery fire. The report was clinical, devastating in its simplicity, probability of paternity. 0% conclusion. The alleged father is excluded as the biological father of the tested child. Sullivan read it 3 times, letting each word sink in. He really had suspected since finding those letters. But seeing it confirmed in stark scientific terms still felt like a physical blow. His phone lit up, Aurora, calling again. Her voice message was cheerful, oblivious. "Honey, my flight lands at 6 tomorrow. Can't wait to see you. Brooke says you've been working so hard on the garage cleanup. Love you. Sullivan poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey, then opened his laptop. Time to set the final pieces in motion. He began transferring funds, protecting assets. Aurora had never paid attention to their finances, trusting him to handle everything. Now that trust would cost her dearly, that a text from Brooke lit up his phone. Dad, please talk to me. We can work this out. He ignored it, focusing on his preparations. Everything had to be perfect for tomorrow. Aurora's homecoming would be one she'd never forget. Morning brought fresh texts from Aurora. Just checked in for my flight. Can't wait to see my 2 favorite people. Love you both so much. Sullivan stared at those words, love you, and felt nothing but contempt. How many times had she texted the same words to Fletcher? How many times had she played both men, keeping her comfortable life with Sullivan while indulging her passion with her lover? He spent the day working from home, finalizing details with Ellis, ignoring Brooke's increasingly desperate messages. At 5:30, he heard a car in the driveway. Footsteps on the porch. Keys in the lock. Sullivan? Aurora's voice, bright and cheerful. Where are you, honey? He remained in his office, listening to her move through the house. Her heels clicked on the hardwood floors, expensive shoes he'd paid for, probably worn on dates with Fletcher. There you are. She appeared in his doorway, elegant in her business suit. Her smile faltered at his expression. Why are you sitting in the dark? Sullivan reached over and turned on his desk lamp, illuminating the spread of evidence before him: photos, letters, hotel receipts. The DNA test results lay on top, stark black text on white paper. Aurora's smile died. What is all this? 15 years of lies. His voice was ice. Sit down, Aurora. Let's talk about Fletcher. The color drained from her face. Sullivan, I can explain. Explain what? He held up a photo. How you been sleeping with him since before we married. How Brooke is his daughter, not mine. How you both lied to me for years. Please let me sit down. She sank into a chair, trembling. Where's Brooke? Gone. Probably warning her real father right now. Sullivan tossed the DNA results across the desk. Did you ever plan to tell me? Or was I just the reliable fool who paid the bills while you played happy families with him? It wasn't like that. Tears spilled down Aurora's cheeks. I loved you. I still love you. Love. Sullivan's laugh was ugly. You don't know the meaning of the word. Love doesn't lie. Love doesn't betray. Love doesn't teach a child to deceive her father. I was trying to protect our family. We were never a family. He pushed the divorce papers across the desk. Sign these. Aurora's hands shook as she read the divorce papers. You're taking everything? The house, the accounts? Sullivan, you can't do this. I can, and I will. He leaned forward. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? That you could keep playing this game forever? It wasn't a game. Aurora's tears smeared her mascara. What Fletcher and I had, it was complicated. Complicated? Sullivan's voice rose. Let me simplify it for you. You've been sleeping with him for over 20 years. Brooke is his daughter, not mine. You both lied to me every single day of our marriage. That's not fair. I did love you. While you were in his bed. Sullivan pulled out more photos. Here's you and Fletcher in Aspen. Said you were at a marketing retreat. Here's you two in San Francisco. Another business trip, right? 15 years of lies. All documented right here. Aurora grabbed a tissue from her purse, dabbing at her eyes. I never meant for any of this to happen. Fletcher and we met in college. When I got pregnant with Brooke, stop. Sullivan's voice was deadly quiet. I don't want to hear your love story. Sign the papers. Please, we can work this out. Go to counseling. Counseling? He laughed harshly. To fix what? The fact that my entire marriage was a lie? That the child I raised isn't mine? That my wife and daughter conspired to deceive me for years? Brooke loves you. You're the only father she's ever known. And whose fault is that? Sullivan stood, towering over her. You robbed me of the chance to have my own children, to build a real family. Instead, I got your lies and Fletcher's leftovers. Aurora flinched. Don't talk about Brooke like that. Why not? It's the truth. Something you should try sometime. He tapped the divorce papers. Sign them, Or I start sending evidence to everyone you know. Your colleagues, your friends, your family. Everyone will know what kind of woman you really are. You wouldn't. Sullivan pulled out his phone. Try me. I've got quite a mailing list. Your boss might be interested in how you've been mixing business with pleasure. Or maybe your parents would like to know why their granddaughter looks so much like your business colleague. Stop. Aurora's hand trembled as she picked up the pen. You're being cruel. Cruel? His voice was ice. Cruel is watching your wife kiss you goodbye, knowing she's going to another man's bed. Cruel is hearing your daughter call you dad while she helps hide her mother's affair. You taught me all about cruelty. Aurora. She signed the papers, tears falling onto the pages. What am I supposed to tell people? Tell them the truth. For once in your life, Sullivan gathered the signed documents. You have until morning to pack your things. Take what you brought into this marriage, nothing more. Where are we supposed to go? Ask Fletcher. I'm sure he'll be thrilled to finally play daddy to his real daughter. Sullivan's smile was cruel. Though from what I've found, he's got his own wife and family to worry about. Did Brooke know she has half-siblings? Aurora's face crumpled. Please don't do this. 15 years together has to mean something. It meant everything to me. He turned away, staring out the window at the gathering darkness. Every promise I made, every vow I took, they were sacred. But to you, they were just words to hide behind while you lived your real life with him. That's not true. I did love you, Sullivan. Part of me still does. Get out. His voice was final. Get out of my office. Get out of my house. Get out of my life. Aurora fled, sobbing. Sullivan listened to her heels on the stairs, her broken cries as she packed. His phone buzzed repeatedly. Brooke, probably hearing from her mother. He ignored the calls, focusing instead on the storm outside. Lightning split the sky, thunder following like nature's applause for the destruction of his marriage. Hours passed. He heard Aurora moving upstairs, clearing out her closet, her drawers. The mundane sounds of a life being dismantled. But they had destroyed it long ago, he realized. He was just making it official that a final text from Brooke lit up his phone. Mom told me everything. Please don't do this. We can still be a family. Sullivan typed back his last message to her. We were never family. We were just your mother's long con. Go be with your real father. I'm done playing substitute. He blocked both their numbers, then poured himself another whiskey. Tomorrow, the locks would be changed. Their photos would be taken down. Every trace of Aurora and Brooke would be erased. Just as they had erased his chance at a real family outside, the storm raged on. But in his office, Sullivan felt only calm. The rage that had driven him since finding that suitcase had crystallized into something harder, colder. They had destroyed the man who trusted and loved them. Now they would face the man they created, the man who would take everything they valued. Just as they had taken everything he believed in, the morning sun cast long shadows through Sullivan's office window as he reviewed the final divorce settlement. 1 week had passed since Aurora signed the papers, 7 days of systematic destruction. He'd spent the weekend erasing every trace of their existence. Family photos removed from walls, leaving pale rectangles like scars on the wallpaper. Aurora's designer clothes donated to homeless shelters, a fitting irony. Brooke's childhood mementos boxed and sent to their new address, a rundown apartment complex on Pine Street. His phone lit up with an unfamiliar number. Fletcher Davis. You've got nerve calling me, Sullivan answered, voice arctic. We need to talk. Fletcher's tone was measured, professional, the same voice he probably used in his consulting presentations. About Aurora and Brooke. This has gone far enough. Far enough? Sullivan's laugh was harsh. We're just getting started. Your wife knows everything. By the way, had an interesting call from her yesterday. A sharp intake of breath. Listen, this situation is exactly what you deserve. Sullivan leaned back, satisfaction coursing through him. How's it feel, Fletcher? Watching your comfortable life collapse? Your wife leaving with half your assets? Your legitimate children refusing to speak to you? You didn't have to destroy. I didn't destroy anything. You and Aurora did that. Sullivan's voice hardened. 20 years of lies? Brooke being your daughter? Those were your choices. Now live with them. They're staying in a roach-infested apartment. Brooke had to drop out of college. Is this what you wanted? What I wanted. Sullivan stood, pacing his office. I wanted a faithful wife, a real family. Instead, I got your cast-offs and their lies. The apartment's too shabby? The lifestyle too harsh? Should have thought about that before you all played me for a fool. I can pay for Brooke's education. Too late. 20 years too late. Sullivan paused at the window, watching his new neighbors move in across the street, a young family. Genuine smiles, no hidden agendas. You want to play daddy now? Fine. But you get to start from scratch. No money, no support, no advantages. Just like you left me with nothing real. She loves you. They both do. Loves. Sullivan spat the word like poison. Let me tell you about their love, Fletcher. Every morning for 15 years, I kissed Aurora goodbye, believing she was going to work. Instead, she was meeting you. Every Father's Day, Brooke handed me cards saying, "World's best dad," knowing she was helping hide her real father's identity. Every family dinner, every vacation, every moment, all lies. We never meant to get caught. Sullivan cut him off. That's the only thing you're sorry about. Getting caught. Well, congratulations. You're free to be a family now. Hope you save some money, because they're going to need it. Aurora lost her job after you exposed everything to her company. Actions have consequences. Sullivan's smile was cold. Speaking of which, how's your own job going? Heard your biggest clients dropped you after learning about your ethical flexibility. Fletcher's voice turned desperate. Listen to me. They're barely making rent. Brooke's talking about dropping out. Not my problem anymore. Sullivan moved back to his desk, examining the latest email from his lawyer. You had 20 years to be a father, Fletcher. Now you get to start from nothing. Just like the nothing you left me with. I'll pay you back. Whatever you spent on Brooke's education. Sullivan laughed. With what money? Your wife's divorce lawyer contacted me yesterday. Seems she's taking you for everything, thanks to the evidence I provided. Funny how karma works. You heartless bastard. No, I'm just honest. Something you should try sometime. Sullivan's voice turned businesslike. Don't call this number again. You got a family to support. Now better start looking for a job that doesn't require a reputation. He ended the call and blocked the number, then opened his laptop to check his accounts. The transfer from Brooke's college fund had cleared money he'd saved for years, believing he was investing in his daughter's future. Now it would serve a different purpose. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Dad, please. We can barely afford food. Mom lost her job after you exposed everything. I had to drop out. Just talk to us. Sullivan blocked Brooke's new number without responding. Let them struggle. Let them feel what real consequences meant. The doorbell rang precisely at 10, Ellis arriving for their scheduled meeting. Sullivan opened the door to find his lawyer clutching a thick folder, his expression satisfied. It's done, Ellis announced, following Sullivan to his office. Judge Blackwood signed off this morning. Aurora gets nothing except her personal belongings. The house, accounts, investments, all yours. The college fund, transferred back to your control. Ellis spread documents across the mahogany desk. Aurora's lawyer tried playing the emotional angle. Judge wasn't having it, especially after seeing the evidence. Called it one of the most calculated deceptions he's seen in 30 years on the bench. Sullivan nodded, scanning the papers. And her job situation? Terminated with cause. Ellis allowed himself a small smile. Once her company learned she'd been using business trips to conduct the affair, they fired her immediately. Something about moral clauses and company reputation. Plus, they're demanding reimbursement for all those fake conference expenses. The apartment they're in now? Pine Street Complex? Ellis pulled out his phone, showing pictures. Place is practically condemned. Roaches, faulty wiring, no air conditioning. Rent's $800 a month, and they're already behind. Not my problem. Sullivan signed the final documents with a flourish. They made their choices. Brooke came to my office yesterday, Ellis said carefully. Girl's a mess. Said they're eating ramen noodles, can barely keep the lights on. She was wearing the same clothes as last week. Let Fletcher help them. Sullivan's voice was steel. He's had 20 years of me providing for his family. His turn now. About that. Ellis scrolled through his phone. Fletcher's wife took him for everything in their divorce. House, cars, custody of their kids. He's living in a motel off Highway 9, trying to salvage what's left of his consulting business. There's more. Ellis handed over another document. Aurora tried applying at Maxwell Marketing yesterday. They called for a reference. And let's just say she won't be working in marketing again. Not in this state, anyway. Ellis leaned back. Your evidence packet was thorough. Every company that calls gets the full story, how she used business trips to conduct her affair, falsified expense reports, involved her daughter in the deception. Good. Sullivan stood, moving to his bar cart. Drink? It's 10 a.m. It's a celebration. Sullivan poured 2 whiskeys. To consequences, after Ellis left, Sullivan drove past the Pine Street apartments, slowing as he approached. The building was a 4-story walk-up, paint peeling in long strips like dead skin. Broken concrete steps led to a graffiti-covered entrance. Through a ground-floor window, he saw Aurora sitting at a card table, head in her hands. She wore no makeup, her designer clothes replaced by worn jeans and a faded t-shirt. Her shoulders shook with sobs. His phone buzzed Brooke again. From another new number, Mom's getting desperate. We can't keep living like this. The power company's threatening to shut us off. Please, Dad. We're still family. Sullivan typed his only response. We were never family. Just your mother's longest-running con. Stop contacting me. Duddy drove to the country club where Aurora had once been a fixture, hosting charity events and ladies' lunches. The valet recognized his new BMW, rushing to open his door. Mr. Sullivan, welcome back. Inside, the club manager hurried over, practically bowing. Mr. Sullivan, we've updated the banned persons list as requested. Mrs. Your ex-wife won't be allowed on the premises. Good. Sullivan handed him a folder. Here's proof she used club expenses to meet her lover. Thought you'd want it for your records. Of course, sir. The manager clutched the folder. And may I say, we all support how you're handling this unfortunate situation. Such behavior cannot be tolerated in our circle. No, it cannot. Sullivan smiled coldly. Send me the bill for any unauthorized expenses she charged here. My lawyer will add it to her growing debt. He was leaving the club when an unexpected visitor approached Iris, Aurora's former best friend. She caught him at his car, wringing her manicured hands. Sullivan, please. You have to stop this. Stop what? Telling the truth. There's suffering. Iris stepped closer, her designer perfume cloying in the afternoon heat. Aurora lost everything: her job, her friends, her reputation. Brooke can't even afford textbooks. Actions have consequences, Sullivan replied flatly. They spent 20 years lying to me. Now they get to spend 20 years living with the truth. Brooke called me crying yesterday. Iris's voice quivered. They couldn't afford groceries. She's eating at the soup kitchen. Not my problem. Sullivan's tone could have frozen fire. Go help them if you're so concerned. Though from what I hear, you knew about Fletcher all along. Makes you complicit, doesn't it? Iris paled, taking a step back. I only suspected. Get off my property. Sullivan advanced, making her retreat further. And tell Aurora to stop sending her friends to plead her case. It's pathetic. Back in his car, Sullivan checked his email. More desperate messages from Aurora. Now using her work account. Please, we need to talk. The landlord's threatening eviction. Brooke's talking about taking a job at that strip club on Highway 9. I can't let her do that. We need help. Any help. I'll sign whatever you want. Sullivan forwarded the email to Fletcher with a single line. Your daughter needs help. Step up or shut up. He drove downtown to meet with the bank manager about transferring his assets. Through the window, he spotted Brooke waiting at a bus stop, wearing a cheap polyester uniform, probably for some minimum wage job. She looked thin, tired, nothing like the confident college student she'd been just weeks ago. His phone buzzed. Ellis again. News from my contact at First National, his lawyer said. Fletcher tried getting a loan to help them. Every bank turned him down. His credit shot from his own divorce. And that evidence packet you sent killed any chance of approval. Karma's interesting, isn't it? Sullivan watched Brooke board the bus, her shoulders slumped in defeat. What else? Aurora interviewed at that marketing firm in Cedar Rapids. They turned her down after checking her references. Apparently, Your proof of her using business trips for affairs has become quite the cautionary tale in marketing circles. Good. Sullivan pulled away from the curb. Let her experience life without her lies to hide behind. That evening, a hand-delivered letter arrived from Brooke Asterisk's dad. I know you say I can't call you that anymore, but you'll always be my father. We're being evicted next week. Mom's lost another job opportunity because of the references. I had to drop all my classes. They wouldn't even let me finish the semester because the tuition check bounced. We're moving to a women's shelter because it's all we can afford. That I know we hurt you. What we did was unforgivable. But please, if there's any part of you that ever loved me, help us. Not for Mom, but for me. For the daughter you raised. For the girl who still remembers you teaching her to ride a bike, helping with math homework, scaring away the monsters under her bed. That I miss you, that I love you, that I'm sorry. Brooke Asterisk. Sullivan fed the letter into his shredder, watching the words disappear line by line. They'd had 15 years of his love, his provision, his trust. Now they could have 15 years of consequences. The next morning brought more drama. Aurora's sister Pearl stormed into his office unannounced, her face flushed with anger. You heartless bastard. She slammed her hands on his desk. They're living in a shelter. Do you know what those places are like? Sullivan didn't look up from his computer. Sounds like a Fletcher problem, not mine. Fletcher's useless. He can't even help himself after his wife took everything. Pearl's voice rose. Aurora made mistakes. Mistakes? Now Sullivan stood, his height making Pearl step back. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is burning dinner. 20 years of affairs, lying about Brooke's paternity, teaching my supposed daughter to deceive me. Those aren't mistakes. Those are choices. They're eating at soup kitchens. Brooke's working as a waitress at that sleazy diner off the highway. Men are always grabbing at her. Get out. Sullivan's voice could have frozen hell. Get out before I make some calls and ruin your real estate career too. I hear clients don't like dealing with people who cover up affairs. After Pearl left, Sullivan drove to his bank. Time to twist the knife deeper. The manager welcomed him warmly. He was, after all, one of their biggest depositors. Mr. Sullivan, what can we do for you today? I'd like to set up a foundation, he said pleasantly. The Truth in Fatherhood Foundation. 4 single fathers raising children who aren't biologically theirs. The manager's eyes widened slightly. Everyone in town knew his story by now. Of course, sir. How much would you like to endow it with? Let's start with Brooks College Fund. Sullivan's smile was razor-sharp. Seems fitting, doesn't it? The news spread through their social circle like wildfire. Local papers picked up the story. Betrayed husband creates foundation to help deceive fathers. Sullivan made sure copies were delivered to the women's shelter where Aurora and Brooke now stayed. That a month after the eviction, he received an unexpected call from Fletcher's ex-wife, Simone. Thought you'd want an update, she said without preamble. Fletcher's living in his car now. Lost his consulting contracts after you exposed everything. How tragic. Sullivan's voice dripped sarcasm. And his other family? Our children want nothing to do with him. Or their half-sister. Simone's tone was clinical. Aurora and Brooke are at the Sunset Women's Shelter. Conditions there are basic. Not my concern. Brooke's working at that truck stop diner. The one with all the harassment complaints. She made her choices. Sullivan checked his watch. Was there a point to this call? Just wanted to thank you. Simone's laugh was cold. Exposing Fletcher's affair helped me take him for everything in our divorce. The evidence you provided was comprehensive. Karma's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Later that week, fate orchestrated a chance encounter. Sullivan was leaving Morton's Steakhouse, a $200 dinner, just finished when a city bus stopped at the corner. Aurora and Brooke stepped off, both wearing different waitress uniforms, looking exhausted. Aurora's once perfect hair hung limp, her face lined with new wrinkles. Brooke's former confident stride had become a tired shuffle. They saw him at the same moment. Brooke took a hesitant step forward, hope flashing across her face. Dad, Sullivan turned and walked to his BMW without acknowledging them. Through his rearview mirror, he watched Brooke collapse into tears, Aurora trying to comfort her. The sight brought him no pain, no regret, only deep satisfaction. They were finally living the truth instead of their comfortable lies. His phone buzzed with a text from Fletcher. Aurora lost another job. Brooks working double shifts at that truck stop diner. The customers there, please help them, Sullivan typed back. Should have thought about consequences 20 years ago. Enjoy watching your daughter serve truckers. The following Sunday, he attended his usual church service, sitting in his regular pew. As he walked to his car afterward, he overheard two women from the choir gossiping. Did you see them at the food bank yesterday? Aurora Sullivan and her daughter. How the mighty have fallen. Remember when Aurora chaired the charity gala? Now she's accepting charity instead of giving it. And Brooke working at that awful diner. Did you hear what happened to her there last week? The grabby customer? Pastor Malcolm had to go down there and intervene. Sullivan smiled as he drove home. The social humiliation was hitting them harder than the financial ruin. Aurora had always cared so much about appearances, about her standing in the community. Now she was a cautionary tale, whispered about at every social gathering. That evening, his doorbell rang. He opened it to find Brooke standing there, still in her diner uniform. Grease stains marked the cheap polyester, and her eyes were red from crying. A dark bruise marked her wrist, probably from fending off handsy customers. You need to leave, he said flatly. Please, she begged, voice breaking. Just listen. Mom's sick. Really sick. We can't afford a doctor. The shelter's full. We're sleeping in our car. Sounds like you should call your real father. Sullivan started to close the door. You are my real father. Brooke's hand shot out, stopping the door. Biology doesn't matter. You raised me. You loved me. I loved a lie. His voice could have cut glass. Everything about our family was a lie. You helped create that lie, Brooke. Now you get to live with the truth. We'll die out there. Tears streamed down her face. Last night, at the diner, a man followed me to my car. If Pastor Malcolm hadn't been there, not my problem. Sullivan's smile was cruel. How does it feel, Brooke? Having to work for a living? Having men stare at you at that diner? Not so fun being honest about who you really are, is it? I was just a kid when it started. Mom made me promise. You're not a kid anymore. You're a grown woman who chose to lie to the man who raised her. Actions have consequences. He stepped forward, making her stumble back. Now get off my property before I call the police. Dad, please, her voice cracked. Remember when I was little? When you check under my bed for monsters? I need you to protect me again. Please. Protect you? Sullivan laughed harshly. The monsters aren't under your bed anymore, Brooke. They're in your mirror. You and your mother, you're the real monsters. The ones who destroy families with lies. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did. Every day, for 15 years. He gripped the door handle tighter. Every time you called me Dad. Every time you helped your mother cover her tracks. Every moment was a betrayal. We can make it right. No. His voice was final. You can't make right 15 years of lies. You can't undo what you did. All you can do is live with the consequences. Now leave. Mom's coughing up blood. Brooke's voice was desperate. The free clinic says she needs tests, but we can't afford them. She could be really sick. Then she better start looking for better jobs. Sullivan's smile was cold, though that might be hard with the references I've provided. Amazing how quickly doors close when people learn the truth about you. You're killing us. No, your lies killed everything. I'm just making sure you face the consequences. He stepped back inside. Goodbye, Brooke. Don't come back here again. I love you, Dad. Sullivan slammed the door on her tears. Through the window, he watched her shuffle back to their old Honda, now dented and rusting. Aurora sat in the passenger seat, looking small and broken. She appeared to be coughing into a handkerchief. Good. Let them feel as broken as they'd left him. His phone lit up. Ellis calling. Thought you'd want to know, his lawyer said. Aurora tried applying for emergency assistance. They turned her down because of her previous income level. She and Brooke are officially homeless. Perfect. Sullivan poured himself a celebratory whiskey, watching their car sputter in the driveway. Everything we planned, everything we set in motion, it all worked. They're destroyed, Sullivan. Completely ruined. Fletcher's living in his car behind the truck stop where Brooke works. Aurora's medical bills are piling up. That cough's getting worse. Good. Sullivan savored both the whiskey and their desperation. They destroyed my life with their lies. Now they get to live in the ruins of theirs. 2 weeks later, Sullivan attended the first board meeting of his Truth in Fatherhood Foundation. The conference room overlooked the city park where he'd once pushed Brooke on the swings. Now he watched as other fathers played with their children, wondering how many of them were living lies like he had. The foundation's getting national attention, Ellis reported, spreading newspapers across the table. 3 more publications want interviews about helping deceive fathers. Sullivan picked up one headline: Betrayed Husband Turns Pain into Purpose. Perfect. Let Aurora see that everywhere she went, his phone buzzed another unknown number. It's Laurel from the shelter. Aurora's in the hospital. Pneumonia. Brooke's working triple shifts to try covering the bills. They need help. Sullivan blocked the number without responding. Let them drain themselves dry trying to survive. It was fitting justice for how they drained him emotionally for 15 years. That evening, he drove past the hospital. Through the emergency room windows, he glimpsed Brooke in her waitress uniform, arguing with a billing clerk. Aurora lay on a gurney behind her, looking small and frail. His phone lit up immediately. Please. Mom can't breathe. The hospital wants insurance or cash. I'll do anything. Brooke. Sullivan typed back. Actions have consequences. Enjoy watching your mother suffer like I suffered. He drove home, satisfaction warming him more than any whiskey could. In his study, he reviewed the latest foundation applications. 10 more deceived fathers seeking help, each one a reminder of why he'd created this. Their gratitude would build his legacy, while Aurora and Brooke's lies destroyed theirs. A final text came through as he prepared for bed. Dad, they're discharging Mom. No insurance, no treatment. She can barely walk. Please, for the love you once had for us. Help. Sullivan blocked this number 2, then opened his laptop to check his investments. The money that could have saved Aurora would instead fund billboards across the city. Truth in fatherhood, because every child deserves honesty. Let them see those signs from whatever street corner they ended up on. Let them understand that the money that could have saved them would now help other men avoid their lies. Through his bedroom window, Sullivan watched a shooting star arc across the night sky. Somewhere out there, in a car or shelter or dingy hospital room, the women who had once been his family were learning the true cost of deception. Their comfortable life had been built on his trust, maintained by his provision. Now they would spend years learning what life was like without his protection. He felt no pity, no regret. They had killed the man who could feel those things, replaced him with someone harder, colder, someone who understood that true justice meant making sure actions had consequences. Permanent, inescapable consequences. Tomorrow, he would announce the foundation's first recipient, a single father raising his ex-wife's child, trying to build an honest life from the ashes of betrayal. The press would be there, cameras rolling. Perhaps Aurora would see it on the TV at whatever shelter took them in. Perhaps Brooke would read about it during her breaks at the truck stop, serving coffee to men who saw her as nothing more than prey. Sullivan smiled as he turned out the lights. They had taught him the true meaning of family not through their love, but through their betrayal. Now he would spend the rest of his life teaching them the true meaning of consequences. In the distance, a siren wailed. Sullivan imagined it heading toward the hospital, toward Aurora's pneumonia-racked body or Brooke's exhausted collapse. But he felt nothing. They had destroyed the man who would have cared. Now they could live with what they'd created instead. The leather office chair creaked as Colton Ramsey leaned back, loosening his silk tie after another successful day at Reynolds and Burke Marketing. The Chicago skyline stretched before him through floor-to-ceiling windows, buildings glowing amber in the setting sun. His corner office on the 38th floor was a testament to 15 years of relentless dedication. The same dedication he'd given to his marriage. His phone buzzed. Another message from Lainey. Working late. Don't wait up. Love you, the same word she'd been sending for weeks now. The same excuse that had begun to sound as hollow as their goodbye kisses. He stared at the message, his thumb hovering over the screen, remembering a time when love you meant something real. Everything all right, Mr. Ramsey? He looked up to find Monica, his assistant of 8 years, standing in the doorway. Her coat was draped over her arm, reading glasses hanging from their chain around her neck. She had that knowing look she'd perfected over the years, the one that said she could see right through his forced smile. "Just fine, Monica." He slipped his phone into his pocket. "Have a good evening." "You too, sir." She hesitated. "And Mr. Ramsey?" "Whatever it is, you'll figure it out. You always do." After she left, Colton pulled up his calendar, the nagging doubt in his gut demanding attention. He started counting. Lainey had been working late exactly 12 times in the past month. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore, just like the way she guarded her phone, the mysterious lunch meetings, and how she'd stopped wearing the diamond necklace he'd given her for their 10th anniversary. The drive home felt longer than usual, his thoughts circling like vultures. Traffic crawled along Lakeshore Drive, giving him too much time to remember all the little changes. How Lainey had started going to the gym more often, buying new clothes, spending extra time on her appearance. Changes that once might have seemed innocent, but now formed a pattern he couldn't unsee. 10 years of marriage. A decade of building a life together, of trust and commitment. He'd given her everything. The lakefront house she'd always wanted, the interior design business she'd dreamed of starting, unwavering support through every up and down. Or so he'd thought when he pulled into their driveway. Lainey's white Mercedes was already there. He checked his watch, 7:30 p.m. So much for working late. The house was quiet when he entered, but he heard the shower running upstairs. Their entrance hall still displayed the photos from happier times. Their wedding day, anniversaries, vacations. Colton stopped before a picture from their trip to Greece last year. Lainey's smile had seemed so genuine then, her arms wrapped around his waist as they posed before the Santorini sunset. Had she been faithful then? Or had the lies already begun? Lainey's purse sat on the kitchen counter, her phone next to it. She'd always been careful with that phone lately, never leaving it unattended. But now, as if fate had finally decided to show its hand, the screen lit up with a notification that Colton's hand trembled slightly as he reached for the phone. In 10 years of marriage, he'd never checked her messages before. Trust had been their foundation, or so he believed. The doubt that had been eating at him for weeks finally overcame his principles. The notification preview showed enough. "Can't wait to see you again, baby. Last night was amazing. Same time next week." The sender's name made his blood run cold. Jackson Hale. Colton knew him. Everyone in their social circle knew Jackson Hale, the arrogant real estate mogul who thought his wealth made him untouchable. The same Jackson who was married to Delaney, who had attended their dinner parties, who had looked Colton in the eye and shaken his hand while sleeping with his wife. That a memory surfaced, sharp as broken glass. Last month's charity dinner at the Drake Hotel. Jackson had been there with Delaney, Lainey wearing that new red dress she'd bought specially for the occasion. Colton had noticed them talking, but hadn't thought anything of it. Now he remembered the subtle touches, the lingering glances, the way Lainey had laughed at whatever Jackson was saying. The shower stopped running upstairs. With precise movements, Colton placed the phone back exactly as he'd found it and moved to the living room. He poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey from the crystal decanter, a wedding gift from Lainey's parents. His hands were steady now, but inside, something had shattered when Lainey came downstairs. Wrapped in her silk robe with wet hair clinging to her neck, she jumped slightly at seeing him. "Oh, you're home early." Colton took a slow sip of whiskey, studying her over the rim of his glass. The woman before him looked the same as always, his beautiful wife of 10 years. But now he saw her differently. Every gesture, every expression, seemed calculated, false. "Am I?" His voice remained casual, controlled. "Thought you were working late." She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a nervous tell he'd grown to recognize. The meeting finished earlier than expected. Must have been some meeting. His grip on the glass tightened imperceptibly. Important client? Just the usual end-of-quarter reports. She moved to the kitchen, keeping her back to him as she poured herself a glass of wine. The same wine Jackson had sent over after their last dinner party. "How was your day?" "Enlightening." She turned, frowning slightly. "What do you mean?" "Nothing." He finished his whiskey and stood. "I'm going to take a shower." He climbed the stairs slowly, each step measured and deliberate. Their bedroom still smelled of her perfume Chanel No. 5, his Christmas gift to her last year. How many times had she worn it for Jackson? The bathroom mirror reflected his face as he loosened his tie. He looked the same as he had this morning, but everything had changed. The man who'd left for work believing in his marriage was gone. In his place stood someone harder, colder, someone who would make them pay for every lie, every betrayal, every moment of mockery. Later that night, lying in bed beside her, Colton listened to Lainey's steady breathing. She'd fallen asleep easily, peaceful in her deception. He stayed awake, plans forming in his mind. This wasn't going to be a simple confrontation. No, they deserved something more elaborate, something that would destroy not just their affair, but their entire world. His phone buzzed softly, an email notification. The Thompson Charity Gala invitation had arrived, requesting the pleasure of their company next week. Colton smiled in the darkness. Sometimes the universe had a sense of irony. A.S. Lainey shifted in her sleep, turning away from him. Colton made his decision. The gala would be perfect. Everyone who mattered in Chicago would be there, watching as he revealed every dirty secret, every lie, every betrayal. But first he needed an ally, someone who had as much to lose as he did. Someone who would understand the need for revenge, that he needed to talk to Delaney Hale. Over the next week, Colton became a hunter stalking his prey. Each morning, he arrived at his office earlier than usual, using the quiet hours to build his case. His laptop became a repository of betrayal, a digital record of every lie, every secret meeting, every piece of evidence that would eventually bring their world crashing down. "Cancel my lunch meetings this week, Monica," he instructed his assistant. "I have some personal matters to handle." Those personal matters involved careful surveillance. The first day, he followed Lainey's Mercedes to the downtown business district. She parked near the Rivera Hotel, a discreet but expensive establishment. 20 minutes later, Jackson's black Range Rover pulled into the same garage. Colton sat in his car, photographing them with a telephoto lens he'd purchased specifically for this purpose. 2 hours later, they emerged separately, but their flushed faces and Lainey's slightly disheveled hair told the whole story. The next day, he hired a private investigator not to gather evidence, but to compile background information on Jackson Hale. The file arrived within hours, painting a picture of a man whose success was built on cutting corners and stepping on others. Jackson had started in real estate during the 2008 financial crisis, buying up foreclosed properties at rock-bottom prices from desperate families. He'd turned those tragedies into a fortune, expanding into commercial real estate and development. Now he owned half a dozen high-rises in downtown Chicago, each project surrounded by whispers of bribes and violated regulations. "Mr. Ramsey?" His investigator's voice crackled over the phone. "There's something else you should know. Mr. Hale has a pattern. This isn't his first affair." Colton's grip tightened on his phone. "Tell me everything." 3 years ago, he had an affair with his project manager's wife. When it came out, the manager was quietly transferred to their Detroit office. Last year, there was another incident with a client's wife. The client's business suddenly faced multiple code violations until they moved their contracts elsewhere. "So he's a predator," Colton said softly. "A careful one. He picks married women, preferably from his social circle. Makes them feel special, desired. Then when it falls apart, he has enough dirt on everyone to ensure their silence." But Jackson had made a mistake this time. He'd chosen the wrong man's wife. Colton spent his lunch hours parked outside their usual meeting spots. The River North Bistro, where they shared intimate lunches in a private booth. The boutique hotel in the Gold Coast, where they disappeared for hours. He photographed everything, noting times, dates, locations. The evidence mounted. Credit card statements showed matching charges at hotels and restaurants. Security footage from his office building caught them in the parking garage, stealing kisses like teenagers. Each piece of evidence was carefully cataloged, building an ironclad case of their betrayal. One afternoon, he spotted them at a sidewalk cafe. Lainey threw her head back, laughing at something Jackson said, her hand resting on his arm. The intimacy of the gesture made Colton's stomach turn. He snapped several photos, adding them to his growing collection. That evening, Lainey came home humming, a shopping bag from an expensive boutique swinging from her arm. "You're in a good mood," Colton observed, watching her over his laptop screen. Had a great meeting with a potential client. She kissed his cheek, and he forced himself not to recoil. They're interested in redesigning their entire corporate headquarters. More lies. He'd watch her spend 3 hours with Jackson at that cafe. Not a client in sight. That's wonderful, honey. Who's the client? She hesitated for just a fraction of a second. Oh, a new tech startup. Very promising. The lies came so easily to her now. He wondered if she even felt guilty anymore later that night. He reviewed his evidence. Photos, timestamps, credit card statements, hotel receipts, all meticulously organized. But it wasn't enough. Public humiliation required perfect timing, perfect execution. He needed someone who understood the stakes, someone with inside knowledge of Jackson's world, that he needed Delaney Hale. Finding her private number wasn't difficult. As the wife of a prominent real estate developer, she sat on multiple charity boards. A few calls to business contacts, a carefully worded request, and he had her direct line sitting in his home office. Colton stared at the number on his screen. In the kitchen, he could hear Lainey preparing dinner, probably texting Jackson between chopping vegetables. The thought steeled his resolve that he pressed dial. The phone rang 3 times before a cultured voice answered. This is Delaney Hale. Mrs. Hale? This is Colton Ramsey. We need to talk. Colton. Her voice carried a note of surprise. What's this about? It's about our spouses. Could we meet somewhere private? A long pause followed. He could almost hear her mind working, calculating possibilities and risks. Finally, she spoke, her voice careful and measured. The Four Seasons, 2 hours. I'll have a private room reserved. Perfect. The pieces were falling into place. The Four Seasons private dining room exuded old money, with its cream-colored walls and crystal chandeliers casting warm light over mahogany furniture. Delaney Hale sat at the corner table, her posture perfect in a black Chanel blazer that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her expression was carved from marble, but her manicured fingers drummed softly against the white tablecloth, the only sign of tension. This better be important, she said as Colton sat down. I don't appreciate cryptic phone calls. Colton placed a manila envelope on the table between them. Your husband is sleeping with my wife. Delaney's hand froze halfway to her water glass. Her blue eyes narrowed, searching his face for any sign of deception. Excuse me? I have proof. He opened the envelope methodically, laying out photographs, text messages, hotel receipts. They've been meeting for months, usually during late meetings or business lunches. She examined each piece of evidence with the precision of a jeweler appraising diamonds. The first photo showed Jackson and Lainey entering the Rivera Hotel. The second caught them at their favorite bistro, heads close together. The third, Jackson kissing Lainey in his car, made Delaney's perfectly painted lips thin into a hard line. That son of a bitch, she whispered, her composure cracking slightly. Then, straightening her shoulders, how long have you known? A week. I've been gathering evidence. Colton leaned back, studying her reaction. I assume this isn't the first time? Delaney laughed, but it held no humor. Oh, Jackson has a type. Married women, preferably from our social circle. Makes them feel special, desired. She took a measured sip of water. I've known about the others. Turned a blind eye for the sake of our position, our reputation. But this, she gestured at the photos. This is different. Because it's personal? Because it's an opportunity. She met his gaze directly. You didn't invite me here just to show me evidence. You have a plan? Colton smiled coldly. The Thompson Charity Gala is next week. Everyone who matters in Chicago will be there, including our unfaithful spouses. And, instead of confronting them now, giving them a chance to spin their lies, we make them watch their world burn. He pulled out the gala invitation. We attend together. Let them see us. Let them wonder. Let them squirm. Then, when the moment is right, we expose everything. Delaney studied him for a long moment, her expression calculating. You want to destroy them publicly. I want them to feel what we feel. The uncertainty, the fear, the knowledge that their whole world could collapse at any moment. He paused. But I need someone who understands their world. Someone who knows where to hit them where it hurts most. Their reputations, Delaney said softly. their social standing, everything they've built their lives around. A cold smile played at her lips. Mr. Ramsey, I believe this is the beginning of a beautiful partnership. They spent the next hour planning, dissecting every detail. Delaney would arrive in Colton's car, making their entrance impossible to ignore. They would coordinate their movements throughout the evening, always visible, always together. Jackson hates not being in control, Delaney explained, her voice rich with years of observation. He'll start making mistakes, especially if he thinks I might know about the affair. And Lainey can't stand being ignored, Colton added. Seeing us together will drive her crazy, but she won't be able to say anything without exposing herself. The beauty of it, Delaney mused, is that they'll have to watch and wonder. Is it real? Do we know? Are we actually together? Or is it all for show? She raised her wine glass. It's rather poetic, don't you think? Making them experience the same uncertainty they inflicted on us. Speaking of uncertainty, Colton pulled out another envelope, this one thicker than the first. I had these drawn up yesterday. Delaney opened it, her eyebrows rising slightly as she read. Divorce papers. Well prepared, I see. I believe in being thorough. As do I. She reached into her designer handbag, producing her own envelope. Already had my lawyers draft them. I was just waiting for the right moment. Their eyes met in perfect understanding. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice, about taking back control from those who had betrayed them. To new beginnings, Delaney raised her glass. And spectacular endings. Colton clinked his glass against hers. They spent another hour refining their plan. Every detail had to be perfect. Their arrival time, their behavior, the gradual escalation that would drive Lainey and Jackson to distraction. One last thing, Delaney said as they prepared to leave. No backing out. Once we start this, we see it through to the end. Trust me, Colton's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Backing out is the last thing on my mind. The week before the gala stretched like a wire-pulled taut, ready to snap. Colton moved through his days with calculated precision, each moment bringing him closer to the night of reckoning. At home, he maintained his facade of ignorance, watching Lainey's preparations with cold amusement. She bought a new dress for the gala, an elegant black number that cost more than most people's rent. Probably purchased with the credit card he'd given her for their 10th anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on him. What do you think? Lainey asked, modeling the dress in their bedroom mirror. Not too much. It's perfect, he replied, and it was perfect for her public humiliation. You'll be the center of attention. She beamed at his response, completely missing the dark promise in his words. You're sweet. Oh, and don't forget to pick up your new tux from the tailor. Already done? He didn't mention that he'd chosen a different tux, one that would complement Delaney's dress perfectly. They'd planned every detail, down to the color of his pocket square, matching her jewelry. Throughout the week, Colton and Delaney coordinated via secure emails, leaving nothing to chance. They met twice more, each time in different locations to avoid suspicion. The Four Seasons had been replaced by discreet coffee shops in neighborhoods where neither Lainey nor Jackson would think to look. Jackson's getting nervous, Delaney reported during their last meeting, stirring her espresso with precise movements. He noticed I've been taking calls in private. Started asking questions about my schedule. Good. Colton checked his phone, where a text from Lainey claimed she was at a supplier meeting. His tracking app showed her at the Rivera Hotel. Let him squirm. I had my lawyers add something special to the divorce papers. Delaney's smile was razor-sharp. A clause about moral turpitude that'll cost him control of 3 of his biggest properties. Thorough. I learned from the best. Him? She leaned forward. What about your preparations? Colton pulled out his phone, showing her the latest addition to their plan. I hired someone to record everything at the gala. Multiple angles, professional quality. When this hits social media, there won't be a single society event in Chicago they'll be welcome at again. 2 days before the gala, Lainey grew clingy, almost desperate for his attention. It was as if she sensed something coming, some instinct warning her of the approaching storm. She suggested they have dinner together, cook at home like they used to. I miss spending time with you, she said, chopping vegetables in their kitchen. We've both been so busy lately. Colton watched her hands move, remembering all the times they'd cooked together in happier days. Yes, we have been busy, haven't we? All those late meetings, client dinners. She faltered for just a moment, the knife hesitating above the cutting board. Well, that's business, isn't it? But this is us time. He smiled, knowing it would be one of their last meals together. Of course, us time. The night before the gala, Colton reviewed everything one final time. The divorce papers waited in his safe, every page carefully prepared to strip Lainey of everything she'd gained through their marriage. The evidence was organized chronologically, photos, messages, hotel receipts, all ready to be displayed on the gala's massive screens. His phone buzzed with a text from Delaney. Everything ready for tomorrow. All set. No turning back now, good. They won't know what hit them. Colton stood at their bedroom window, looking out over the Chicago skyline. Behind him, Lainey slept peacefully, unaware that this would be their last night as husband and wife. Tomorrow, her comfortable world would shatter like fine crystal dropped on marble floors. That he thought about their marriage vows, about promises of faithfulness and honor. She'd made those promises while looking into his eyes, her voice steady, her smile bright. All lies. Tomorrow, she'd learn the price of betrayal. His phone buzzed one last time. Delaney again. Sweet dreams. Tomorrow, we take back everything they stole from us. Colton smiled into the darkness. Tomorrow, Chicago's elite would witness a scandal they'd never forget. Tomorrow, Lainey and Jackson would learn that their clever little affair had been the biggest mistake of their lives. But tonight? Tonight was for savoring the anticipation, for knowing that in less than 24 hours, justice would be served cold, calculated, and without mercy. The Thompson Charity Gala transformed the crystal ballroom of the Drake Hotel into a glittering spectacle of wealth and power. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over Chicago's elite as they paraded in their finest. Air thick with expensive perfume and whispered gossip, Colton watched through the tinted windows of his Mercedes as the valet helped Delaney out. She was stunning in a deep blue designer gown that whispered money and power, diamonds glinting at her throat and ears. Their entrance had been timed perfectly, fashionably late enough to ensure all eyes would be on them. "Ready?" he asked, offering his arm. That Delaney's red lips curved into a predatory smile. "Born ready. Let's give them a show they'll never forget." Through the grand doors, they could already see Lainey and Jackson inside. They were standing near the bar, champagne flutes in hand, looking perfectly at ease in their betrayal. Lainey wore the new black dress, while Jackson sported a custom tuxedo that probably cost more than most people's cars. "Remember," Delaney whispered, her grip tightening on Colton's arm, "let them come to us. The more we ignore them, the faster they'll crack." They made their entrance with calculated grace. The effect was immediate. Conversations stuttered to a halt as heads turned. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wind through tall grass. "Is that Colton Ramsey with Delaney Hale? But aren't they? Oh my God, look at Lainey's face." Colton caught the exact moment Lainey saw them. The color drained from her face, her champagne flute freezing halfway to her lips. Beside her, Jackson's confident smirk faltered, his knuckles whitening around his glass. "Mr. Ramsey." Richard Thompson, their host, approached with an outstretched hand. "And Mrs. Hale. What a unexpected pleasure to see you together." "Richard." Colton smiled warmly, shaking his hand. "Delaney and I have been working closely on some exciting new ventures." "Very exciting," Delaney added, her voice carrying just far enough to reach Lainey and Jackson. "Colton has been absolutely instrumental in helping me explore new opportunities." The innuendo wasn't lost on anyone, least of all their spouses. From the corner of his eye, Colton saw Lainey set her glass down with shaking hands. "Darling." Delaney touched his arm, the gesture intimate and deliberate. "Shall we get some champagnes?" They moved through the crowd like royalty, accepting greetings and making small talk while steadfastly ignoring their spouses. Every touch, every laugh, every whispered conversation was choreographed for maximum impact. "They're watching us," Delaney murmured behind her champagne glass. "Jackson looks like he's about to burst a blood vessel." "Good." Colton placed his hand on the small of her back, leading her toward the dance floor. "Let's give them something else to watch." The orchestra was playing a slow waltz. Colton pulled Delaney close, their bodies moving together with practiced ease. They'd rehearsed this, knowing every eye in the room would be on them. "Your wife is about to have a meltdown," Delaney observed, her lips curved in amusement. "She's changed colors 3 times in the last minute. Jackson's not doing much better. Look at how he's grinding his teeth." They continued their dance, every movement designed to torture their watching spouses. Colton's hand traced patterns on Delaney's back. She laughed at something he whispered in her ear. To anyone watching, they looked like 2 people in the throes of a new romance. Finally, Laney cracked. She moved toward them with determined steps, her face a mask of forced politeness. "Colton," her voice was tight, controlled. "Could I speak with you for a moment?" He turned to her slowly, as if just noticing her presence. "Laney, you look tense. Is everything all right? Please." She glanced at Delaney, then back to him. "Just for a minute?" Colton pretended to consider it, his hand still resting possessively on Delaney's waist. "Actually, I promised Delaney the next dance. Perhaps later. This is important. More important than my date." He raised an eyebrow. "That would be rather rude of me, wouldn't it?" Laney's composure slipped for just a moment, raw panic flashing across her face. "What are you doing?" she hissed, dropping all pretense. "Dancing," he replied simply. "With a beautiful woman. Is there something wrong with that?" The orchestra shifted to another slow dance as Laney stood there, her composure crumbling by the second. Around them, other guests pretended not to watch while hanging on every word. "Colton, please." Laney's voice dropped to a desperate whisper. "What's going on between you and Delaney?" He turned to Delaney with a soft smile. "What do you think, darling? Should we tell her what's going on?" Delaney traced a finger down his lapel. "I think some things are better left to the imagination. Don't you?" "You're right as always." He turned back to Laney. "I'm sure you understand. After all, you're quite good at keeping secrets yourself, aren't you?" The color drained from Laney's face. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Oh, nothing specific." Colton's voice was casual, but his eyes were cold. "Just that everyone has their little secrets. Don't they, sweetheart?" Before Laney could respond, Jackson appeared at her side. His confident swagger was gone, replaced by barely contained rage. "Enough games, Ramsey. What the hell do you think you're doing?" "Jackson." Delaney's voice dripped with false sweetness. "How nice of you to join us. We were just discussing secrets. You must have some fascinating insights on that topic." "Delaney," Jackson started, but she cut him off. "No, really, darling. Tell us all about it. About all those late meetings, those business dinners, those special clients." Her smile was sharp as a blade. "You always did have such interesting stories." More guests were gathering nearby, drawn by the mounting tension. Whispers circulated through the crowd like electricity. "This isn't the place," Jackson growled, his fists clenching. "No." Colton raised an eyebrow. "I thought you loved an audience, Jackson. You certainly seemed to enjoy showing off at the Drake Hotel last month. Though I suppose you thought no one was watching then." Jackson's face went from red to white in an instant. "You me?" Colton's smile never wavered. "I'm just making conversation. Unless there's something specific you'd like to discuss." Laney grabbed Colton's arm. "Stop it. Whatever you think you know. Think." He looked down at her hand until she released him. "Oh, I don't think, Laney. I know. Every detail. Every meeting. Every lie. You're making a scene," she hissed. "Am I? I thought I was just enjoying the party with my date." He turned to Delaney. "Another dance?" "Love to." She stepped closer to him, making sure Jackson got a good view of her hand sliding up Colton's chest. "Although I was thinking we might want to get some air on the terrace later. It's such a lovely night for stargazing." Jackson's jaw clenched so hard they could hear his teeth grinding. "Delaney, we're leaving. Now." She laughed, the sound like crystal breaking. "Oh, darling. You stopped having any say in what I do the moment you decided to fuck my friend's wife." The words hit like a thunderclap. Nearby conversation stopped dead. Someone gasped. Laney swayed on her feet, grabbing a passing waiter's tray for support. "You don't know what you're talking about," Jackson snarled, but his voice shook. "No." Delaney's smile widened. "The Rivera Hotel. The River North Bistro. That charming little spot in the Gold Coast. Should I continue? I have dates, times, receipts. You're drunk. He tried, but the panic in his eyes was unmistakable. Hardly. She turned to Colton. Darling, wasn't it the 14th when they spent 3 hours in that private booth at Maison Laurent? Or was it the 15th? The 14th, Colton confirmed, his voice cold and precise. The same day, Lainey told me she was working late on the Peterson account. Funny coincidence that. Lainey made a small, broken sound. Colton, I can explain. Can you? He turned to her, and for the first time, let her see the full force of his rage. Can you explain why you broke every vow we made? Why you looked me in the eye and lied day after day? Why you let this piece of shit touch you? Don't talk about him like that. The words burst from her before she could stop them. The silence that followed was deafening. Lainey clapped a hand over her mouth, realizing too late what she'd revealed. Well, Colton's voice was deadly quiet. At least now we know where your loyalties lie. Jackson stepped forward, trying to salvage some control of the situation. You think you're so clever, don't you, Ramsey? Playing these games, making these accusations, games? Colton laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to talk about games, Jackson? Like the game where you fuck other men's wives? Or the one where you pretend to be a respectable businessman while destroying families? Watch your mouth, Jackson warned, his face darkening. Or what? You'll try to ruin me like you did to Richard Martinez when your affair with his wife came out? Or Thomas Blake when you couldn't keep your hands off his wife? Colton stepped closer, his voice dropping. You're a predator, Jackson. A pathetic little man who gets off on taking what belongs to others. I said watch your mouth. Jackson's control snapped. He lunged forward, grabbing Colton's lapel. The room erupted in gasps and exclamations. But Colton didn't move, didn't even flinch. He just smiled, cold and deadly. Go ahead, he said softly. Show everyone exactly who you are. Jackson's grip on Colton's lapel tightened, his knuckles white with rage. The crowd around them drew back, forming a circle of shocked faces and whispered commentary. You think you can come in here, Jackson snarled. Spread your lies. Try to ruin my reputation? Your reputation? Colton's laugh was cold enough to freeze blood. The only person who ruined your reputation is you. I'm just making sure everyone knows exactly who Jackson Hale really is. You don't know anything about me. I know everything. Colton didn't move to break free, his calm only infuriating Jackson further. Every dirty deal, every affair, every time you've destroyed lives for your own pleasure. Tell me, does it make you feel powerful? Taking other men's wives? Ruining families? Jackson, stop. Lainey's voice cracked with panic. Please, you're making it worse. Shut up. Jackson snapped at her. And in that moment of distraction, Colton moved with lightning speed. He grabbed Jackson's wrist and twisted, forcing the bigger man to release his grip. Jackson stumbled back, his face contorting with rage. Don't you ever, Colton's voice was lethal, tell my wife to shut up. Your wife? Jackson sneered, recovering his balance. The same wife who's been warming my bed for months? The one who begs for me, who can't get enough. Colton's fist connected with Jackson's jaw before he could finish the sentence. The crack of impact echoed through the ballroom like a gunshot. Jackson reeled backward, blood trickling from his split lip. For a moment, complete silence fell over the room. Then Jackson touched his bleeding mouth, looked at his red-stained fingers, and lunged with a roar of rage. His wild swing caught Colton's shoulder, but Colton had been ready for it. He stepped into the punch, using Jackson's momentum against him to drive his fist into the man's ribs. The sound of cracking bone was viscerally satisfying. Colton, stop! Lainey screamed, but her voice seemed to come from very far away. Jackson tried to grapple, but his technique was sloppy, all fury and no finesse. Colton slipped under his guard and delivered a brutal uppercut that snapped Jackson's head back. Security! Someone shouted. Somebody call security. But no one moved to intervene. The crowd watched, horrified and fascinated, as Chicago's elite real estate mogul got systematically demolished by the man he'd betrayed. Jackson swung again, desperation making him clumsy. Colton blocked the punch and countered with a devastating blow to his solar plexus. As Jackson doubled over, gasping for air, Colton grabbed his hair and drove his knee into the man's face. Blood sprayed across the marble floor. Jackson went down hard, his nose clearly broken. "Get up," Colton commanded, his voice eerily calm. "Show everyone how tough you are, Jackson. Show them what a big man you are." Jackson tried to rise, blood streaming down his face, but Colton's foot caught him in the ribs, sending him sprawling again. "What's wrong?" Colton circled him like a predator. "Not so confident without your lies to hide behind?" "You're insane," Jackson choked out, spitting blood. "No." Colton crouched beside him, his voice pitched for Jackson alone. "I'm just better than you. At everything. Including this." He punctuated the words with another punch that left Jackson curled on the floor, moaning, "Colton, please." Laney grabbed his arm. "You'll kill him." He shook her off with enough force to send her stumbling. "Don't touch me. Listen to your wife, Ramsey," Jackson managed through bloody teeth. "Or what's left of her." The taunt was a mistake. Colton's next punch knocked out two of Jackson's teeth. Finally, hotel security burst through the crowd. Two burly men in black suits moved to restrain Colton, but he stepped back on his own, straightening his jacket with precise movements. "No need, gentlemen." His voice was perfectly controlled again. "I believe Mr. Hale, and I have finished our discussion." Delaney, who had watched the entire scene with cold satisfaction, stepped forward. "Actually, darling, I believe we have one more item on tonight's agenda." She nodded toward the ballroom's massive screens, normally used for charity auction displays. Colton smiled, reaching for his phone. "You're right, of course." He pressed a button, and the screens flickered to life. "Ladies and gentlemen, I believe it's time for a toast." The ballroom screens came alive with images, each more damning than the last. Jackson and Laney entering hotels. Secret meetings caught on security cameras. Screenshots of text messages. Hotel receipts. Every piece of evidence meticulously documented, displayed in high definition for Chicago's elite to see. Colton grabbed a fresh champagne flute from a passing waiter, his composure perfect despite the violent moments before. Not a hair was out of place, not a wrinkle marred his tuxedo. The same couldn't be said for Jackson, who was still bleeding on the marble floor. "Ladies and gentlemen," Colton's voice carried clearly through the stunned silence. "I'd like to propose a toast." "Colton, don't." Laney's makeup was streaked with tears, her perfect facade finally cracking. "Please, we can talk about this privately." "Privately?" He turned to her, eyes cold. "Like how you and Jackson kept your affair private, how you snuck around behind our backs, thinking you were so clever, so discreet." The screens shifted to show more evidence. Intimate text messages, hotel booking confirmations, security footage timestamps. "You see," Colton addressed the crowd, "my wife and our dear friend Jackson have been quite busy these past few months. While I was working to build our life together, while Delaney was playing the devoted wife, these two were meeting in hotel rooms across Chicago." Gasps and whispers rippled through the crowd. Several guests pulled out their phones, recording everything. "Colton," Laney sobbed, "I can explain." "Explain?" His laugh was sharp as broken glass. "Explain how you broke every vow we made? How you looked me in the eye and lied, day after day?" "No, Laney, you don't get to explain." He nodded to Delaney, who produced an envelope from her clutch. "In fact," she said, her voice carrying clearly, "I don't think either of you will be doing much explaining anymore." She walked to where Jackson was struggling to sit up, security guards hovering uncertainly nearby. With deliberate movements, she opened the envelope and let the papers flutter down around him. "Divorce papers, darling," she announced. "Plus evidence of your multiple affairs, fraudulent business dealings, and tax evasion. I'm sure the IRS and the Securities and Exchange Commission will find it fascinating reading." "You can't," Jackson sputtered through his bloody mouth. "I already have." She smiled, cold and triumphant. "You taught me well, remember? Always keep leverage on everyone. I learned from the best." Colton pulled out his own envelope, thick with legal documents. "And Laney, these are for you." He tossed the papers at her feet. She stared at them, her face ashen. "No," she whispered. "Yes." He raised his glass. "So, let's toast. To my dear wife and our friend Jackson. To their secrets and lies. To their arrogance in thinking they'd never be caught. To karma," Delaney added, Raising her own glass with elegant precision, Lainey crumpled to the floor, sobbing openly now. Jackson tried to stand, but couldn't manage it, his injuries and humiliation leaving him broken on the marble. "You've ruined everything," Lainey choked out. "No, sweetheart." Colton's voice was ice. "You did that all on your own. I just made sure everyone knows exactly who you are." He turned to address the shocked crowd. "And speaking of everyone knowing, the evidence you've seen tonight has already been sent to every major news outlet in Chicago. I'm sure tomorrow's headlines will be fascinating reading." "You bastard," Jackson growled from the floor. "That's rich, coming from you." Colton smiled, but it never reached his eyes. "How's your face feeling, by the way? I hope I didn't damage anything permanently. Though I suppose your modeling career was never going to take off anyway." Delaney stepped over her husband's prone form like he was nothing more than a minor obstacle. "I think it's time we made our exit, darling. The air in here has become rather stale." "Couldn't agree more." Colton offered her his arm. "Though one last thing." He walked to where Lainey knelt among the scattered divorce papers. Crouching down, he spoke softly, but his words carried in the silent room. "Remember how you said you could explain?" He waited until she looked up at him, mascara streaking her cheeks. "Don't bother. There's nothing you could say that would make me forgive you. Nothing that would make this okay. You're dead to me, Lainey. From this moment on, you don't exist." Standing, he straightened his cuffs and returned to Delaney. Together, they walked toward the exit, the crowd parting before them like the Red Sea behind them. They left destruction. Lainey sobbing on the floor, Jackson bleeding and humiliated. Their reputations, their social standing, their carefully constructed lies, all of it shattered beyond repair. And Colton? He felt nothing but satisfaction. Justice had been served, cold and merciless, exactly as planned. The morning sun painted Chicago's skyline in shades of gold, but the headlines painted it in scandal. Colton sat in his new penthouse apartment, sipping coffee and reading the Chicago Tribune's front page, "Real Estate Mogul's Affair Exposed." Shocking gala confrontation rocks Chicago elite. His phone hadn't stopped buzzing since dawn. Texts, calls, emails, everyone wanted his side of the story. He ignored them all, enjoying the quiet satisfaction of victory that a knock at his door broke the morning silence. Through the security camera, he saw Lainey standing in the hallway, looking nothing like the polished society wife she'd once been. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her designer clothes wrinkled as if she'd slept in them. "Go away, Lainey," he called through the intercom. "Please," her voice cracked. "Just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. You had 10 years. You wasted them." "Colton, I love you." He cut off the intercom. Through the camera, he watched her slide down the wall, sobbing. Let her cry. Her tears meant nothing to him now. His phone buzzed again, Delaney this time. "Have you seen the news?" she asked when he picked up. "Hard to miss." He took another sip of coffee. "How's Jackson handling his newfound fame?" "Poorly." Her laugh was rich with satisfaction. "The SEC launched an investigation this morning. Turns out our evidence of his creative accounting practices caught their attention. 3 of his biggest projects are now under scrutiny." "What a shame." "Indeed. And that's not all. 2 more wives have come forward with similar stories. Seems Jackson's predatory pattern is finally catching up to him." Colton smiled. "How's the divorce proceeding?" "My lawyers are circling like sharks. With the morality clause in our prenup and evidence of his affairs, I'll take him for everything he's worth." She paused. "Speaking of which, have you heard from Lainey? She's currently crying outside my door." "How pathetic." Delaney's voice dripped contempt. "What are you going to do?" "Nothing. She doesn't exist anymore, remember?" Another knock at his door interrupted them. This time, it was his building's security team. "Mr. Ramsey," the head of security stood with 2 officers. "Your wife is causing a scene in the hallway. Would you like us to remove her?" "Ex-wife," Colton corrected coldly. "And yes, please remove her. She's not welcome here." Through the camera, he watched them approach Lainey. "Mrs. Ramsey, you need to leave," the security guard said firmly. "No, please." Lainey struggled to her feet. "Colton, just let me explain. Please." "Ma'am, don't make this harder than it needs to be." "You don't understand," she sobbed. "He's my husband." "Not anymore." Colton said through the intercom. The divorce papers were served last night. Remember? Now get out of my building before I have you arrested for trespassing. The next week unfolded like a slow-motion car crash for Lainey and Jackson. Colton watched it all from a comfortable distance. Each new development confirming that his revenge had exceeded even his expectations. His phone rang. Monica, his assistant. Mr. Ramsey? Lainey's on line 3. Again. That's her 7th call today. Keep blocking her. He turned to his office window, watching a storm roll in over Lake Michigan. Any other news? Yes, sir. The Chicago Business Journal wants your comment on Jackson Hale's company's stock dropping 60% since Monday. Colton smiled. Tell them no comment, though you might mention that karma's a fascinating thing. One more thing. Monica hesitated. Mr. Reynolds wants to see you. About making you managing partner. Really? Colton raised an eyebrow. Interesting timing. He said, and I quote, anyone who can orchestrate that level of strategic takedown belongs in our leadership. A knock on his office door interrupted them. Richard Thompson stood there, looking uncomfortable in his $1,000 suit. Colton, do you have a minute? Of course, Richard. Come in. He ended the call with Monica and gestured to a chair. What brings Chicago's premier real estate developer to my humble office? Richard shifted nervously. It's about Jackson. He's trying to salvage what's left of his business. He asked me to talk to you. Did he? Colton's voice turned arctic. And why would I be interested in anything Jackson has to say? Look, what he did was wrong. Unforgivable, even, but his company employs hundreds of people. Innocent people who might lose everything. Like how he made other people lose everything. Colton leaned forward. Tell me, Richard, did he send you to plead for Thomas Blake when Jackson ruined his business? Or for Richard Martinez when he destroyed his marriage and career? That was different. No, it wasn't. Jackson made his choices. Now he gets to live with the consequences. Colton's smile was sharp. And speaking of consequences, I heard the SEC is very interested in some of your joint ventures with him. Might want to get your lawyers ready. Richard paled. Are you threatening me? Not at all. Just offering friendly advice between colleagues. Colton stood. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting with my divorce attorney. The law offices of Jensen and Partners occupied the top floor of a Michigan Avenue high-rise. Patricia Jensen, Chicago's most feared divorce attorney, greeted Colton with the smile of a shark scenting blood. The papers are ready, she said, pulling out a thick file. Your wife, excuse me, soon-to-be ex-wife won't know what hit her. Has she hired representation? Tried to. But after that gala video went viral, most top firms won't touch her. Afraid of antagonizing your connections. Patricia's smile widened. She's working with some strip mall lawyer from Naperville. Perfect. Colton reviewed the documents. What about the house? You'll keep it. The prenup is ironclad, and with proof of her infidelity, she violates the morality clause. She gets nothing except what she brought into the marriage. Good. He signed where indicated. Make sure she's served at her office. Maximum embarrassment. His phone buzzed a text from Delaney. Turn on Channel 5 News. Now he grabbed the remote from Patricia's desk, switching on the wall-mounted TV. Jackson's bruised face filled the screen, standing outside his office building while reporters shouted questions. Mr. Hale, is it true the SEC is investigating your company? What about the allegations of systematic fraud? Have more women come forward about affairs? Jackson looked nothing like the confident mogul he'd once been. His designer suit hung loose, his face still showing traces of Colton's beating. I have no comment at this time, he stammered. My attorneys will, Mr. Hale. Another reporter pushed forward. Sources say your biggest investors are pulling out. Is your company facing bankruptcy? The fear that flashed across Jackson's face was answer enough. Colton watched with satisfaction as the man who'd thought himself untouchable crumbled on live television. His phone buzzed again. Delaney. Beautiful, isn't it? Watching them fall apart very. How are the divorce proceedings going? Wonderfully. My lawyers found offshore accounts he thought he'd hidden. I'm taking everything. Colton was about to reply when Patricia interrupted. There's something else you should see. She handed him her tablet, showing a social media post from Lainey. I know I made terrible mistakes. I betrayed the best man I've ever known. Colton, if you're reading this, please. I'm begging for a chance to explain. To make things right. I'll do anything. Pathetic, Colton muttered, handing back the tablet. Make sure that post gets included in the divorce filing. Shows she's admitting to the affair publicly. Already done? Patricia gathered the papers. You know, in 20 years of handling divorces, I've never seen a more thorough destruction of someone's life. It's almost beautiful. Almost. Colton stood, straightening his tie. It's a masterpiece. A month after the gala, Chicago's social landscape had shifted dramatically. Colton sat in his new corner office at Reynolds and Burke, now as managing partner, reading the latest headlines on his tablet. Hale Properties files for bankruptcy. SEC investigation expands. More charges expected. Society scandal leads to mass exodus of investors. His intercom buzzed. Mr. Ramsey? Laney's mother is here to see you. Colton sighed. Send her in. Eleanor Williams entered, looking every bit the society matron in her Chanel suit and pearls. But her usual imperious expression had been replaced by desperation. Colton, please. She didn't wait for an invitation to sit. You have to stop this. Stop what? Eleanor? The consequences of your daughter's actions. She's destroyed Colton. Her business is failing. No one will work with her. She had to move back home because she can't afford an apartment. She cries herself to sleep every night. How tragic. His voice could have frozen hell. Tell me, did she cry herself to sleep while she was fucking Jackson Hale? Or did she sleep just fine after lying to my face? She made a terrible mistake. No, Colton cut her off. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is burning dinner. What she did was a choice. Multiple choices, made day after day, for months. But you loved her once, and she killed that love. He stood, towering over her. Now, unless you want your family's financial dealings scrutinized as closely as Jackson's, I suggest you leave. Now. After she left, his phone rang. Delaney, you'll never believe who just tried to approach me at the spa, she said without preamble. Jackson's mother. Colton laughed. Let me guess. Begging for mercy? Claimed he's having a breakdown. Apparently, he's been drinking heavily, rambling about revenge. She thinks he might do something desperate. Let him try. Colton's voice hardened. I'd love an excuse for round 2. That won't be necessary. He could hear her smile. The FBI just raided his offices. Seems all that evidence we gathered led them to a massive fraud scheme. He'll be lucky to stay out of prison. Later that afternoon, Colton's lawyer called with updates on the divorce proceedings. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. Laney would be left with nothing, no alimony, no property, not even her wedding rings. That as he hung up, his office door burst open. Jackson stumbled in, drunk and disheveled, his once immaculate appearance now a wreck. You bastard, he slurred, swaying on his feet. You've ruined everything. Colton didn't even stand. Security will be here in 30 seconds. Make them count. My company, my reputation, everything I built. You did that yourself? Colton's voice was ice. Every time you chose to fuck another man's wife. Every time you destroyed someone else's life for your own pleasure. I just made sure everyone saw you for what you really are. I'll kill you. Jackson lunged forward, but security caught him before he made it 2 steps. Get him out of here, Colton ordered. And make sure he's charged with trespassing and threatening bodily harm. As they dragged Jackson away, his threats echoing down the hallway, Colton's phone buzzed with a text. A video link from one of his contacts, Laney, being served with the final divorce papers in front of her failing design studio. The footage showed her crumpling to the ground, sobbing as curious onlookers filmed with their phones. More social media fodder, more public humiliation. Perfect that evening, he met Delaney for drinks at the Peninsula's rooftop bar. She looked triumphant, radiating the satisfaction of a predator after a successful hunt. The divorce is final, she announced, raising her martini. I got everything, the houses, the cars, even his precious art collection. His lawyers folded like cheap suits once I threatened to expose more of his affairs. Congratulations. Colton clinked his glass against hers. To freedom and justice. She smiled. You know, I almost feel sorry for them. Almost. Don't. They made their choices. Speaking of choices, she set down her glass. I'm moving to New York. taking over the East Coast operations of his company. Well, my company now? Good for you. You could come with me. She touched his hand. We work well together. Colton withdrew his hand gently. We worked well for revenge. But that's done now? She nodded, unsurprised. No regrets? None. He looked out over the city lights. They thought they could play their little games, keep their secrets. They never saw the storm coming. And now they've lost everything. Everything, he agreed. Just like they deserve. 3 months after the gala, Chicago's winter had settled in, coating the city in pristine white that matched the coldness in Colton's heart. He stood in his new penthouse, watching snowflakes dance past floor-to-ceiling windows while reading the latest news on his tablet. Jackson Hale, indicted on federal fraud charges. Former real estate mogul faces 20 years. Scandal continues. Hale Properties assets seized. His phone buzzed a text from Delaney. Have you seen the news? They're leading him out in handcuffs. It's beautiful. Attached was a video clip. Jackson, once the epitome of power and privilege, being escorted from his home by FBI agents. His designer suit had been replaced by wrinkled business casual, his confident swagger reduced to a defeated shuffle that couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Colton replied, "Thought you'd appreciate that. By the way, heard anything from Lainey recently?" "Not since the divorce was finalized. Last I heard, she's working as a junior designer at some suburban firm. Quite a fall from her own Chicago studio. Karma's a bitch." Speaking of which, settling in well in New York. The view from Jackson's former office is spectacular. Colton smiled, remembering how thoroughly Delaney had stripped her ex-husband of everything. She'd taken control of his company, his properties, even his club memberships. The man who'd thought himself untouchable was now facing prison with nothing left to his name. A notification popped up on his tablet. An email from his lawyer. The house had sold, well above asking price. The last physical tie to his life with Lainey gone. He'd donated all her remaining belongings to charity, erasing every trace of her from his life. His intercom buzzed. "Mr. Ramsey, there's a delivery for you. Send it up." Minutes later, he signed for a package. Inside was a letter from Lainey, handwritten on expensive stationery. Her last attempt at contact, Colton, "I know nothing I say can fix what I destroyed. The life we had, the trust one broke, it's all gone, and I have no one to blame but myself. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just want you to know that losing you, watching you walk away that night at the gala, was the moment I truly understood what I'd thrown away. You were everything to me, and I ruined it all for nothing. Jackson was a mistake, a stupid, terrible mistake that cost me the only man I'll ever truly love. That I'm leaving Chicago. There's nothing left for me here but memories and regret. I won't contact you again. I just needed you to know that I'm sorry. Even though I know sorry will never be enough, always." Lainey Colton read the letter twice, then dropped it into his crystal whiskey tumbler. Pulling out his lighter, he watched the paper catch fire, curling and blackening until nothing remained but ashes floating in the amber liquid. Walking to his wine cellar, a feature that had sold him on the penthouse, he selected a bottle of Macallan 25, the same scotch he'd been saving for his and Lainey's anniversary. It seemed fitting to drink it now, marking a different kind of milestone. The liquid caught the light as he poured, golden as the wedding ring he'd sold the day after the gala. He moved to the window, looking out over his city. Chicago spread before him, its lights twinkling through the falling snow like stars. Everything had worked out perfectly. Jackson was facing prison, his empire destroyed, his reputation in tatters. Lainey had lost her business, her social standing, her entire world. Their punishment had been complete, absolute, and exactly what they deserved. Colton raised his glass to his reflection in the window. In the darkened glass, he saw not just himself, but the man he'd become. Stronger, colder, completely free of the weakness of forgiveness. "To karma," he said softly. "To justice. To the perfect revenge." He sipped the scotch, savoring its rich complexity. Like revenge, it had taken time to mature, but the wait had made it all the sweeter. His phone buzzed one final time, a news alert. Jackson's bail had been denied. He would await trial in federal custody, his lawyer's arguments about flight risk deemed valid given his dwindling resources and multiple offshore accounts. Colton smiled, remembering Jackson's face that night at the gala, bleeding and broken on the marble floor. The physical beating had been satisfying, but this complete destruction of everything the man had built was infinitely better. Taking another sip, he watched the snow fall, content in the knowledge that he'd orchestrated the perfect revenge. No forgiveness, no mercy, just pure, cold justice served exactly as he'd planned. Now that, he said to the empty room, is a toast worth remembering.